what if everything we've been taught about staying strong after 40 is quietly exhausting us? And the real secret to longevity isn't pushing harder, but learning how to rest with intelligence and intention. After midlife, the human body begins to change in ways that are subtle yet deeply significant. These changes do not arrive with sudden alarms or dramatic warnings. Instead, they unfold quietly within the tissues, hormones, and cells that have carried us through decades of movement and effort. One of the most important shifts is the body's increasing need for recovery. Muscles that once repaired themselves overnight now require longer periods of restoration. Hormonal rhythms that once surged with youthful efficiency begin to slow and soften. Inflammation, once a short-lived response to physical exertion, lingers more persistently in the background. This does not mean the body is failing. It means the body is adapting. It is transitioning from a phase of rapid growth to a phase of careful preservation. Scientific research into muscle physiology reveals that after the age of 45 to 50, the regenerative capacity of muscle fibers gradually declines. In younger years, microscopic tears created during exercise trigger a swift repair process. Satellite cells activate quickly, protein synthesis accelerates, and new muscle tissue forms efficiently. Recovery happens almost invisibly, often within a single night of sleep. But with age, this regenerative cycle slows. The same microtears still occur during exercise, but the repair mechanisms operate at a more measured pace. Protein synthesis becomes less responsive, and the inflammatory response to physical stress becomes more pronounced and prolonged. Without adequate rest, these microinjuries accumulate rather than resolve. Instead of growing stronger, muscles remain in a state of low-grade strain, leading to stiffness, soreness, and gradual fatigue. Hormonal changes play a central role in this process. Growth hormone and testosterone, both essential for tissue repair and muscle maintenance, naturally decline after midlife. Estrogen, which supports joint health and reduces inflammation, also fluctuates and decreases over time. These hormonal shifts do not eliminate the body's ability to heal, but they do alter the speed and efficiency of recovery. When exercise is intense or frequent without sufficient rest, the body struggles to keep up with repair demands. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, remains elevated for longer periods after physical exertion. Persistently high cortisol interferes with muscle repair, disrupts sleep quality, and promotes fat storage around vital organs. Over time, this hormonal imbalance creates a cycle in which increased effort leads to decreased vitality. Rest becomes essential, not only for muscle repair, but for the regulation of the nervous system. The autonomic nervous system governs how the body responds to stress and recovery through its two main branches, the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. Exercise naturally activates the sympathetic response, increasing heart rate, blood pressure, and energy mobilization. This activation is beneficial when balanced with periods of parasympathetic recovery, during which the body slows down, repairs tissues, and restores energy. After midlife, however, the nervous system becomes more sensitive to cumulative stress. Without intentional recovery, the body can remain in a prolonged sympathetic state, even at rest. This persistent activation leads to sleep disturbances, reduced digestion efficiency, and chronic fatigue. Adequate rest, particularly deep sleep and moments of calm wakefulness, shifts the nervous system back into parasympathetic mode, allowing true restoration to occur. Inflammation also becomes a more significant factor in the aging body. Acute inflammation is a natural and necessary response to exercise, signaling the body to repair and strengthen tissues. But when recovery is insufficient, inflammation can become chronic. Low-grade, persistent inflammation is associated with joint pain, reduced mobility, and increased risk of metabolic and cardiovascular conditions. Scientific observations show that individuals who engage in frequent high-intensity exercise without adequate rest often exhibit elevated markers of systemic inflammation. Conversely, those who balance moderate movement with restorative practices tend to maintain lower inflammatory levels and better overall health. Rest provides the time and conditions necessary for the immune system to resolve inflammation and return the body to equilibrium. Sleep, perhaps the most powerful form of rest, takes on heightened importance after midlife. During deep sleep, the body releases growth hormone, repairs damaged tissues, consolidates memory, and clears metabolic waste from the brain. The glymphatic system, responsible for removing toxins from neural tissue, operates most efficiently during slow-wave sleep. Yet many adults in midlife experience changes in sleep patterns, including lighter sleep and more frequent awakenings. When intense exercise is layered onto insufficient sleep, the body's recovery capacity becomes further compromised. Prioritizing rest means protecting sleep quality, allowing the body the uninterrupted time it needs to restore itself at a cellular level. There is also an energetic dimension to recovery that becomes more evident with age. The body's energy production centers, known as mitochondria, gradually decline in efficiency over time. These structures generate the energy required for every cellular function, including muscle contraction and repair. Excessive physical stress without adequate rest increases oxidative stress within mitochondria, reducing their ability to produce energy efficiently. Rest, on the other hand, supports mitochondrial repair and renewal. Gentle movement combined with sufficient recovery enhances mitochondrial function, leading to more stable and sustainable energy levels. This is why many individuals find that when they prioritize rest alongside moderate exercise, they experience greater endurance and vitality than when they push themselves relentlessly. The psychological relationship with rest also evolves after midlife. Many people carry forward a mindset shaped by younger years, equating productivity with constant activity. Slowing down can feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. Yet learning to value recovery as an essential component of strength transforms this relationship. Rest is no longer seen as inactivity, but as a deliberate and intelligent investment in long-term health. When individuals allow themselves to recover fully between periods of exertion, they often discover that their capacity for movement improves. Muscles feel more responsive, joints move more freely, and energy becomes more consistent. The body, when given time to repair, responds with resilience rather than resistance. Understanding the increased need for recovery after midlife is not about reducing ambition or abandoning physical goals. It is about aligning effort with biology. The body continues to adapt and strengthen well into later decades, but it does so under different conditions than in youth. These conditions include longer recovery periods, balanced intensity, and attentive listening to physical signals. By respecting the body's changing rhythms, individuals can maintain strength, mobility, and vitality without exhausting the systems that sustain them. Rest becomes a partner to movement, not its opposite, creating a dynamic in which each supports and enhances the other. In this partnership, the body is not driven to perform beyond its capacity, but is supported in functioning at its highest sustainable level. Rest is often misunderstood as a passive state, a simple pause between periods of activity. But within the human body, it is one of the most biologically active and transformative processes. Particularly after midlife, rest becomes the primary environment in which repair, regulation, and renewal occur. Every system within the body, muscular, hormonal, neurological, and immune, depends on restorative periods to maintain balance and functionality. Without adequate rest, even the most carefully designed exercise routine cannot produce sustainable health. Instead of building strength, the body remains trapped in a cycle of stress and incomplete recovery. Scientific understanding increasingly shows that restoration is not the opposite of progress. It is the condition that makes progress possible. When the body enters a state of rest, especially deep and uninterrupted rest, it initiates a cascade of internal repair mechanisms. One of the most important of these is hormonal recalibration. During periods of calm, and especially during deep sleep, the body releases growth hormone, a powerful regulator of tissue repair and regeneration. Growth hormone supports muscle recovery, strengthens bones, and stimulates the renewal of cells throughout the body. After midlife, natural production of this hormone declines, making restful states even more critical. The body no longer produces abundant growth hormone automatically. It releases it in response to specific conditions, most notably deep sleep and relaxed parasympathetic activation. When rest is fragmented or insufficient, this hormonal release becomes limited, and the body's ability to repair daily wear and tear diminishes. At the same time, rest plays a crucial role in balancing cortisol and other stress-related hormones. Cortisol is necessary for energy regulation and survival, but chronic elevation disrupts nearly every system in the body. Persistent high cortisol levels interfere with muscle repair, weaken immune defenses, and contribute to fat accumulation around vital organs. Restorative states signal the endocrine system to reduce cortisol production and restore equilibrium. Slow breathing, gentle stillness, and especially sleep activate feedback loops that calm the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the system responsible for stress hormone regulation. As cortisol levels normalize, the body shifts from a defensive mode into a regenerative one. This transition is subtle but profound, marking the difference between merely functioning and truly healing. Neural recovery is another essential function of rest that becomes increasingly important with age. The brain, like any organ, accumulates metabolic byproducts throughout the day. These byproducts, if not cleared efficiently, contribute to cognitive fatigue and long-term neurological decline. During deep rest, particularly slow-wave sleep, the brain activates a specialized cleaning system known as the glymphatic pathway. This system flushes out waste proteins and toxins that build up during waking hours. Scientific observations show that this cleansing process is significantly more active during sleep than during wakefulness. Without sufficient restorative sleep, these metabolic residues remain in neural tissue, potentially affecting memory, concentration, and emotional stability. Rest, therefore, is not only refreshing for the mind, it is essential for maintaining neurological health and clarity. The immune system also relies heavily on restorative periods to function optimally. Throughout daily life, the immune system constantly identifies and responds to potential threats, repairs damaged cells, and maintains internal balance. This activity requires energy and coordination. During rest, especially during sleep, immune cells such as T cells and natural killer cells become more active and efficient. Cytokines, the signaling proteins that regulate immune responses, are produced and released in balanced patterns. When rest is inadequate, immune responses become less coordinated. The body may remain in a state of low-grade inflammation, which over time contributes to joint discomfort, fatigue, and increased vulnerability to illness. Adequate rest allows the immune system to recalibrate, reducing unnecessary inflammation while strengthening defenses against genuine threats. Restorative states also influence cardiovascular health in significant ways. When the body is relaxed, heart rate slows, blood pressure decreases, and blood vessels become more flexible. This reduction in cardiovascular strain allows the heart and circulatory system to repair microscopic damage and maintain elasticity. Over time, consistent restorative rest supports healthier blood pressure regulation and reduces the risk of cardiovascular complications. Conversely, chronic overexertion combined with insufficient rest keeps the cardiovascular system in a state of persistent demand. The heart works harder than necessary, and blood vessels remain under continuous pressure. This imbalance gradually erodes cardiovascular resilience. Rest, by allowing the system to reset regularly, preserves its capacity for endurance and adaptability. There is also a metabolic dimension to rest that often goes unnoticed. The body's ability to regulate blood sugar and maintain metabolic balance is closely tied to sleep and relaxation. During deep sleep, insulin sensitivity improves, allowing cells to utilize glucose more effectively. Hormones that regulate hunger and satiety, such as leptin and ghrelin, also stabilize during adequate rest. When rest is disrupted, these hormonal signals become imbalanced. Appetite may increase, cravings for high-energy foods may intensify, and metabolic efficiency may decline. Over time, this imbalance contributes to weight gain and metabolic strain. Restorative sleep and calm wakeful rest support metabolic harmony, enabling the body to manage energy resources more efficiently. Beyond the physical mechanisms, rest nurtures emotional and psychological resilience. The brain processes experiences and regulates emotional responses most effectively during periods of calm and reflection. Without sufficient rest, emotional reactivity increases and the capacity for patience and clarity diminishes. Restorative states allow the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for decision-making and emotional regulation, to recover from daily stress. This recovery enhances the ability to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. Over time, consistent rest fosters a sense of inner stability and well-being that extends beyond physical health. In midlife and beyond, the integration of rest into daily life becomes an act of biological wisdom. The body continues to repair and renew itself, but it does so most effectively when given the conditions it requires. These conditions include not only sleep, but also moments of quiet wakefulness, gentle breathing, and unhurried presence. Each of these states signals the body to shift from survival-oriented functioning to restorative functioning. In this shift, tissues repair more completely, hormones balance more naturally, and the nervous system settles into a rhythm that supports longevity and vitality. Rest, far from being a passive pause, becomes the central process through which the body maintains its integrity and strength over time. There is a quiet paradox that emerges after midlife. Many people begin exercising with greater intensity in an effort to preserve youth, strength, and vitality. They push harder, extend workouts longer, and believe that more effort will inevitably produce more health. Yet biology does not always respond to increased effort with increased resilience. In fact, excessive exercise without sufficient recovery can initiate processes that gradually accelerate cellular aging rather than slow it. The body, when repeatedly exposed to high physical stress without adequate restoration, begins to shift from a state of adaptation into a state of chronic strain. This transition is subtle, often unnoticed at first, but over time, it reshapes how energy is produced, how tissues repair, and how the body ages at the cellular level. One of the central mechanisms behind this shift is the persistent elevation of cortisol. Cortisol is often described as the body's primary stress hormone, but it is more accurately a regulator of energy distribution. During exercise, cortisol mobilizes stored energy, increases blood sugar, and sharpens focus. In short bursts, this response is beneficial and necessary. However, when intense exercise occurs frequently without sufficient rest, cortisol remains elevated for extended periods. Instead of returning to baseline, it becomes a constant background signal. Chronically high cortisol interferes with muscle repair by breaking down protein tissue for energy. It disrupts sleep cycles, reduces collagen production in joints and skin, and suppresses immune function. Over time, this hormonal environment shifts the body from building and repairing toward conserving and protecting, a state that mirrors accelerated aging. Excessive physical stress also increases oxidative stress within the body. Every time the body produces energy, it generates reactive oxygen species as byproducts. In moderate amounts, these molecules play useful roles in signaling and adaptation. But when production exceeds the body's antioxidant defenses, oxidative stress begins to damage cellular structures. Proteins, lipids, and even DNA can be affected by this imbalance. High-intensity exercise, especially when repeated without recovery, significantly increases the production of reactive oxygen species. Younger bodies often neutralize these molecules efficiently, but after midlife, antioxidant capacity gradually declines. Without sufficient rest to restore balance, oxidative damage accumulates. This accumulation affects mitochondrial function, reduces energy production efficiency, and contributes to the gradual decline associated with aging. Mitochondria, often referred to as the energy centers of the cell, are particularly sensitive to chronic overexertion. These structures generate the energy required for every biological function, from muscle contraction to neural signaling. When exercise intensity exceeds the body's recovery capacity, mitochondria experience sustained stress. Their membranes can become damaged, and their ability to produce energy efficiently begins to decline. Instead of generating steady, reliable energy, they produce energy less efficiently and create more oxidative byproducts. This cycle further increases oxidative stress, creating a feedback loop that accelerates cellular wear. Rest and recovery provide the time and conditions necessary for mitochondrial repair and renewal. Without that recovery, the very systems designed to produce vitality begin to operate under strain. Another important factor in this process is systemic inflammation. Exercise naturally triggers inflammation as part of the repair and strengthening process. This acute inflammation signals the body to rebuild tissue stronger than before. But when exercise is excessive and recovery is inadequate, inflammation does not fully resolve. Instead, it lingers at low levels throughout the body. Chronic low-grade inflammation is now recognized as a key contributor to many age-related conditions, including joint degeneration, cardiovascular strain, and metabolic imbalance. Persistently elevated inflammatory markers indicate that the body is not completing its repair cycles. Instead of adapting positively to stress, it remains in a continuous state of defense and partial repair. Rest allows inflammatory responses to resolve fully, returning the body to a balanced state where true strengthening can occur. The nervous system also bears the burden of excessive exercise without recovery. High-intensity physical activity activates the sympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system, commonly associated with the fight-or-flight response. This activation increases heart rate, blood pressure, and alertness, preparing the body for action. In balanced circumstances, this state is followed by activation of the parasympathetic system, which restores calm and promotes healing. However, frequent intense exercise without sufficient rest can keep the nervous system in a prolonged sympathetic state. This persistent activation reduces heart rate variability, disrupts sleep quality, and creates a baseline sense of tension within the body. Over time, the nervous system loses its flexibility, becoming less able to shift smoothly between activity and recovery. This rigidity contributes not only to physical fatigue, but also to emotional and cognitive strain. At the cellular level, chronic stress from overexertion influences processes linked to aging itself. Telomeres, the protective caps at the ends of chromosomes, naturally shorten as cells divide over time. Their length is considered one indicator of biological aging. Research suggests that chronic stress and persistent inflammation can accelerate telomere shortening. Excessive exercise without adequate recovery contributes to this stress environment, potentially influencing the rate at which cellular aging occurs. While moderate physical activity is associated with healthier telomere maintenance, the key factor is balance. Movement that is paired with sufficient rest supports cellular longevity, whereas relentless physical stress without restoration may have the opposite effect. There is also an emotional and psychological dimension to excessive exercise that affects overall well-being. When the body is consistently pushed beyond its recovery capacity, subtle signals of fatigue and strain begin to emerge. Sleep becomes less refreshing, motivation fluctuates, and a sense of heaviness replaces the lightness often associated with healthy movement. Many individuals interpret these signals as signs that they must try harder, increasing intensity in an attempt to regain lost energy. This response, though understandable, often deepens the cycle of depletion. Recognizing that these signals are requests for recovery rather than demands for more effort is a crucial shift in perspective. Understanding the relationship between excessive exercise and accelerated aging does not mean abandoning physical activity. Movement remains essential for maintaining strength, mobility, and metabolic health. The key lies in aligning effort with recovery. When periods of exertion are balanced with adequate rest, the body adapts positively. Muscles strengthen, cardiovascular function improves, and energy systems become more efficient. When recovery is neglected, however, the same activities can gradually erode the very vitality they are meant to preserve. Rest is not a sign of weakness or inactivity. It is the phase in which adaptation completes itself. Without it, effort remains unfinished, and the body carries forward the cost of continuous strain. After midlife, the relationship between energy and health begins to change in ways that are both subtle and profound. In earlier years, energy often feels abundant and self-renewing. A demanding day can be followed by a night of sleep and a full return to vitality. The body compensates quickly for strain, drawing from deep physiological reserves. But as the decades progress, energy becomes less about how much can be produced in a moment and more about how wisely it is managed over time. This shift marks a transition from intensity-driven living to rhythm-based living, where balance within the nervous system becomes the foundation of long-term strength and longevity. Energy within the human body is not an unlimited resource. It is generated continuously through complex cellular processes, primarily within mitochondria, and distributed according to need. Every thought, movement, and emotional response requires energy. In youth, the body's production systems operate with remarkable efficiency, and excess demand is often met with rapid replenishment. After midlife, however, mitochondrial efficiency gradually declines. This does not mean that energy disappears, but it does mean that recovery from depletion takes longer. When energy is spent without sufficient restoration, the body begins to function in a state of low-level deficit. This deficit may not be immediately visible, but over time, it manifests as fatigue, slower healing, reduced motivation, and increased sensitivity to stress. Managing energy wisely becomes essential because the body prioritizes survival over performance when resources are limited. If energy is consistently directed toward intense physical exertion or chronic stress, less remains available for cellular repair, immune function, and hormonal balance. This is why individuals who maintain extremely demanding exercise routines without adequate recovery often feel paradoxically drained rather than energized. Their bodies are allocating resources toward immediate demands while postponing deeper restorative processes. Rest, in this context, becomes not merely a pause, but a deliberate reallocation of energy toward maintenance and renewal. The nervous system plays a central role in this balance. It acts as the body's primary regulator of energy distribution, constantly assessing whether conditions are safe or stressful. The sympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system prepares the body for action, mobilizing energy for movement and alertness. The parasympathetic branch, by contrast, promotes restoration, digestion, and repair. In a well-regulated system, these two branches alternate fluidly, creating a dynamic rhythm between activity and recovery. After midlife, however, this flexibility often diminishes. The nervous system becomes more reactive to cumulative stress and less efficient at returning to a calm baseline. Without conscious attention to recovery, many people remain in a prolonged sympathetic state, even during periods of rest. This persistent activation has far-reaching effects. Heart rate remains slightly elevated, breathing becomes shallow, and muscles hold subtle tension. Digestion slows, and sleep may become lighter and more fragmented. Over time, this continuous low-level activation consumes energy that would otherwise support repair and regeneration. Restorative practices that activate the parasympathetic system allow the body to redirect energy toward healing processes. Slow, deliberate breathing, gentle movement, quiet reflection, and sufficient sleep all signal safety to the nervous system. When safety is perceived, the body shifts from expenditure to restoration. Blood pressure decreases, muscle tension releases, and internal repair mechanisms activate more fully. Energy management after midlife also involves recognizing the difference between stimulation and true vitality. Intense exercise, caffeine, and constant activity can create a temporary sense of energy by stimulating the nervous system. This stimulation, however, often comes at the cost of deeper reserves. True vitality arises from stable energy production and efficient recovery. It feels steady rather than urgent, calm rather than restless. When individuals begin to prioritize recovery alongside movement, they often notice a change in how energy feels within the body. Instead of fluctuating dramatically, it becomes more consistent. Instead of requiring constant stimulation, it emerges naturally from balanced physiological function. Hormonal balance is closely tied to this energetic stability. The endocrine system regulates how energy is produced, stored, and utilized. Hormones such as insulin, thyroid hormones, and cortisol all influence metabolic efficiency. Chronic overexertion and insufficient rest disrupt these regulatory systems. Cortisol may remain elevated, affecting blood sugar regulation and increasing fatigue. Thyroid function may become less efficient, slowing metabolic processes. Insulin sensitivity may decrease, leading to unstable energy levels throughout the day. Restorative states allow these hormonal systems to recalibrate. When the body experiences consistent periods of calm and recovery, hormonal signals become more balanced, supporting more reliable energy production. Emotional and cognitive energy are also influenced by nervous system balance. A body that remains in a constant state of low-level stress consumes mental resources simply to maintain equilibrium. This can manifest as irritability, reduced focus, or a sense of mental fog. When restorative practices are integrated into daily life, cognitive clarity often improves. The brain, like the body, requires periods of reduced stimulation to consolidate information and replenish neurotransmitter stores. Quiet moments of rest allow neural pathways to reset, enhancing both creativity and emotional resilience. Over time, this contributes to a more stable sense of well-being that extends beyond physical health. Learning to manage energy wisely requires a shift in perspective. Instead of measuring health solely by how much can be done in a day, attention turns to how sustainably that activity can be maintained. Movement remains essential, but its role changes from proving strength to supporting vitality. Shorter, more mindful exercise sessions often produce better outcomes than prolonged, exhausting routines. Gentle consistency replaces intense bursts followed by depletion. Rest is no longer viewed as an interruption, but as an integral part of maintaining capacity. When activity and recovery are balanced, the body operates within its optimal range, preserving both strength and resilience. There is also a deeper sense of self-awareness that emerges when energy management becomes a priority. individuals begin to notice subtle signals from the body. The difference between healthy exertion and draining strain, between refreshing movement and exhausting effort. This awareness allows for more responsive choices. On days when energy is abundant, movement can be embraced with enthusiasm. On days when the body signals a need for restoration, rest can be honored without guilt. This responsiveness creates a partnership with the body rather than a struggle against it. Over time, this partnership fosters a sense of trust and stability that supports long-term health and longevity. In this balanced rhythm, the nervous system remains flexible, energy remains renewable, and the body continues to function with quiet strength and adaptability. Sustainable strength after midlife is no longer built on intensity alone. It emerges from a rhythm, a steady and intelligent balance between movement and restoration that allows the body to adapt without becoming depleted. In earlier decades, strength often feels like something that can be forced into existence through repetition and effort. Muscles respond quickly, endurance improves with pressure, and recovery happens almost automatically. But as the body matures, its priorities shift. It begins to value consistency over intensity, restoration over strain, and longevity over short bursts of performance. This shift does not weaken the potential for strength. It refines the conditions under which strength can truly grow and remain stable over time. The body continues to adapt well into later decades. But adaptation depends on recovery just as much as effort. When muscles are engaged through movement, they experience microscopic stress that signals the need for repair and reinforcement. This stress is not harmful when followed by adequate recovery. In fact, it is essential for maintaining muscle density, bone strength, and joint flexibility. However, the repair process itself requires energy, time, and biochemical support. Without sufficient rest, the body cannot complete the cycle of breakdown and rebuilding that leads to stronger tissues. Instead, it remains in a state of partial repair, where fatigue accumulates and resilience gradually declines. Sustainable strength arises when movement is followed by intentional restoration, allowing the body to rebuild fully before being challenged again. Gentle and consistent movement plays a crucial role in this process. After midlife, the body responds more favorably to regular moderate activity than to sporadic intense exertion. Walking, stretching, light resistance training, and mindful mobility exercises stimulate circulation, maintain joint health, and preserve muscle tone without overwhelming recovery systems. These forms of movement send signals to the body that strength and mobility are still required, encouraging maintenance of functional capacity. When paired with adequate rest, this steady stimulation supports gradual improvement rather than sudden depletion. Over time, the body becomes more efficient at maintaining strength because it is not constantly recovering from excessive strain. Rest, in this context, becomes the environment in which adaptation is completed. During restful periods, the body synthesizes proteins to repair muscle fibers, reinforces connective tissues, and replenishes energy stores. The nervous system shifts into a restorative mode, allowing coordination and balance to improve. Even bone density, often associated with weight-bearing activity, is influenced by recovery. Bones respond to mechanical stress by remodeling themselves, but this remodeling occurs primarily during periods of rest. Without sufficient recovery, the signals that promote strengthening cannot be fully translated into structural improvement. Rest provides the time and biochemical resources necessary for these processes to unfold. Sleep represents the deepest form of restoration within this rhythm. During sleep, the body enters phases of profound repair and recalibration. Growth hormone is released, supporting tissue regeneration and metabolic balance. The brain consolidates motor learning, improving coordination and efficiency of movement. Muscles relax completely, allowing circulation to deliver nutrients and remove metabolic waste. After midlife, sleep quality often becomes lighter and more easily disrupted, making intentional rest even more important. Protecting sleep through consistent routines and calming pre-sleep practices enhances the body's ability to recover from daily activity. When sleep is prioritized, even modest exercise can produce significant improvements in strength and vitality. There is also a psychological dimension to sustainable strength that becomes more evident with age. Many individuals carry an internal narrative that equates effort with worth and rest with inactivity. This narrative can create resistance to slowing down, even when the body clearly requests recovery. Learning to view rest as an active contributor to strength requires a shift in perception. Rest is not a withdrawal from progress, but a preparation for it. When individuals allow themselves to recover fully, they often discover that their capacity for movement increases rather than diminishes. Muscles feel more responsive, joints move with greater ease, and energy becomes more reliable. This experience gradually reshapes the relationship with both movement and stillness. The nervous system serves as the mediator between effort and restoration in this rhythm. When movement is performed with awareness and without excessive urgency, the nervous system remains balanced. Heart rate rises during activity, but returns smoothly to baseline afterward. Breathing deepens rather than becoming strained. This balanced activation allows the body to interpret exercise as beneficial rather than threatening. When rest follows naturally, the nervous system integrates the experience, reinforcing neural pathways that support coordination and strength. Over time, this integration leads to more efficient movement patterns and reduced risk of injury. Strength becomes not only a function of muscle power, but of neurological harmony. Sustainable vitality also involves recognizing the importance of variation within this rhythm. Some days invite more movement, while others call for deeper rest. Listening to these variations prevents the accumulation of hidden fatigue. When the body signals a need for restoration through soreness, heaviness, or reduced motivation, honoring that signal allows recovery to occur before strain becomes injury. On days when energy feels abundant, gentle challenges can be introduced to maintain adaptability. This responsive approach creates a dynamic balance that supports long-term resilience. Rather than adhering to rigid routines, individuals learn to engage in a dialogue with their own physiology. Over time, this rhythm of gentle movement and intentional rest creates a form of strength that is both stable and enduring. It does not rely on peaks of performance followed by exhaustion. Instead, it builds gradually, supported by consistent care and attentive recovery. Muscles remain active without becoming overworked. Joints stay mobile without becoming inflamed. Energy flows steadily rather than fluctuating dramatically. This steady vitality supports not only physical capability, but also emotional and cognitive well-being. The body feels supported rather than pressured, capable rather than strained. In this state, strength is no longer something that must be pursued aggressively. It becomes a natural expression of balance, emerging quietly from the ongoing partnership between effort and restoration. Sustained through rhythms that respect the body's need for renewal and its enduring capacity for adaptation.